Let's drop in together for a moment, because today we're speaking about something most spiritually aware souls don't realize they're doing. They're trying to evolve while cutting themselves off from the thing that actually allows that evolution, and that's feeling. Not the performative kind, not the let me make sense of this kind, not the overanalyzed, the over-explained, the over-spiritualized kind. That's not it. I mean the raw, honest presence with yourself that your body has been asking for quietly and patiently for years, if not lifetimes. This episode is about remembering that your next version of self doesn't arrive because you figure something out in your head. It arrives because you feel something through. And join me on the inside and I'll take you all the way through that journey.
You're listening to the Intuitive Mastery Podcast. Hi, I'm Kate Connolly, and with over 15 years of intuitive healing and teaching experience, I'm here to help you celebrate intuition and value authenticity to create a world where you have the freedom to live your best life. This podcast is here to teach you how to apply the principles of spirituality, healing, and mindset to have true and lasting joy, all from the inside out. This is the Intuitive Mastery Podcast.
Welcome to this week's podcast. My name is Kate Connolly. I am an intuitive healer and an intuition teacher. I run the Intuitive Mastery School, which is a place for spiritually aware people to learn more about themselves, to heal things that they can't heal, regardless of how much work they do, and really move into a place of being intuitively mastered, where you can listen to your intuition, you can follow your own guidance, and you do not feel reliant on anybody outside of you to make choices or to live your life apart from you. And being in that super empowered, really kind of sovereign place is something that most of us only really dream of being. And I want to help you get there if this really resonates with you. And if it doesn't, absolutely let it go. There's no problems here from me. If you do want to join me, all of the links are below. And I would love to have you, because this journey is done so much more easily and quickly when you do it as a community like we have. So I'm talking to you today about this concept of feeling again after being shut down. And it's really, really tricky when, especially for people who are empathically minded, where they are spiritually attuned, when they have deep intuition about things and they just see and feel things that most people don't see and feel. People usually feel quite separate and they don't feel like they belong. I had this incredible woman come into me in just one of my clinics and was talking to me about how she's always felt out of step. She's never felt like she belonged. She always felt like she could see and feel and experience things on a different level to her family and to her community. And when I tuned into her, and she's a slightly older lady, and the only reason I'm bringing that up is because generationally it's getting easier, but some of the older generations at the moment don't have an enormous number of peers who have these abilities. So they often feel a lot more alone than, say, people of my generation or below. And I was speaking to her about this concept of being a starseed, and I spoke to her about a lot of the different traits that she would feel and how she would be coping and what might be happening in her world. And she would just kind of, the lights went on and she said, oh my gosh, this is why I met you. This is why we're working together, so that I can actually kind of get this to a deeper level, because she'd never had anyone meet her the way that I was able to see her. And there are so many of you out there like that. And it breaks my heart to, for people to feel like they're so deeply alone in this world because they feel different, because they can feel and see and intuit things that other people can't. And when you do have those abilities, it's actually really, really easy to shut your emotions down and your intuition down just to survive. And you go into this place of questioning yourself. You go into this place of not really knowing who you are, because you become a chameleon. You numb to stay functional, right? And you dissociate to stay good, because you need to be a good girl or a good boy or a good whoever you choose to show up as. And that is really soul destroying for so many people. I literally just had one of my receptionists who was with me for a couple of years, a beautiful, amazing, incredible soul, just pass away of cancer. And it's very possible that she went against a lot of her intuitive choices in terms of treatment, and it was fatal. And I'm not saying it's good or bad to go down a particular road for any kind of medical situation. What I'm saying is, when we don't listen to our intuition, we usually have consequences to that. We usually go down paths that maybe we didn't want to go down, or we might enter or leave relationships that we didn't want to leave or enter. We might take on jobs that we didn't want to do. We might take on medical interventions or mental health interventions, or we might take, do diets or whatever it is that is not based on our knowing, not based on what feels right to us. And I had a classic example of this the other week, where I have moved interstate a couple of years ago, and I have gained a lot of cortisol weight. I've had incredible amounts of stress. It's been a very, very difficult transition for a number of reasons. And I'd put on quite a lot of weight since I spoke to an old kind of friend from my children's school, and I was treating her the other day, and she kind of made a comment and thought I was pregnant, which was, a whole other thing. And she told me to do a keto diet. And I'm pretty intuitive, and I'd seen it in 3 or 4 places. So for me, when there's synchronicities around seeing things in 3 or 4 places, I get curious. So I'm like, okay, I've seen this in 3 or 4 places. I'm going to get curious, and I'm going to just tune into me. And I tuned into me, and the answer was 100% absolutely do not do that. If you have a keto diet with cortisol insufficiency and a lot of stress and a lot of other things that are happening emotionally, you can actually make yourself worse. You need to be changing, your diet to be more intuitive and just kind of aligning with what it is that you need. And you also need to be doing a lot of work around the, adrenal insufficiency and what's actually happening with your cortisol levels, and work on that stuff, which I'd already been doing and actually really seeing some results in. And I can safely say that after doing this work for 20 years and getting this advice from someone else who'd also been doing work on themselves for a very long time, I realized after the conversation a few hours later that, wow, that advice, that information was not coming from her highest self, and it wasn't coming from her knowing. It was coming from her ego. But there was a part of me that responded to that. There was a part of me that actually felt emotions around that, and that was up to me to work through. So once I kind of got clarity about, actually, no, that's the wrong advice for me, and I need to just keep doing what I'm doing and working on myself in different ways, that was really beautiful confirmation for me that I was doing the right thing and I was heading in the right direction, regardless of what somebody else said. And it's so easy to get kind of pushed down another lane and get shut down with your own thoughts and your own feelings. And emotions are such a big part of this, because as soon as your emotions get shut down, it's really easy to just stay that way. It's really easy to stay numb. And then what you end up doing is you try and be a good person. You dissociate from situations so that you don't get caught up in the emotion, and then you rise above it too quickly because you're told it's high vibe. So you're going through all of these different coping mechanisms just so you can survive. Looking at the silver lining, that is not positive thinking. That is avoidance. It's coping. It's bypassing. Because what you're doing is you're not honoring your experience that you've just had. You're not honoring the pain and the emotion and the experience that you've had. And what happens is that when you do all of these bypassing things, the tragedy of it is that you end up abandoning the exact portal that's going to carry you into your next evolution. So your emotions are always the portal into the next version of who you are meant to be. If you ignore those emotions, if you shut them down, if you high vibe your way out of them, you are missing the point, and you will never, ever change. You will never evolve. You will never move through anything, and you will be stuck. And we have to come back to this concept that feeling is not the obstacle. Feeling is the portal. And every time we think that emotions and feeling is the obstacle, we keep ourselves stuck. We judge ourselves for our negative emotions. We judge ourselves for crying, for being too emotive, for, making other people uncomfortable because they're not used to having those emotions either. And what we do is we shut it all down. But when we realize and remember that it is actually the portal into that next version, it's the activation point, it's the ignition, it's the evolution we're basically moving through somatically. Our body, our vibration, our entire biochemistry is making way for that next version of who we're supposed to be. And if we, shut that down from tiny things to really big life events, it doesn't really matter what it is. As soon as we shut that down, we are halting that next evolution of ourselves. And it does make it really, really difficult. Okay. You can't heal what you refuse to feel. And, feeling is healing and all of those things. And there's lots and lots of trite sayings around it, but they're so true. And the second we ignore that aspect of our humanness is the second that we refuse to move into the version of ourselves that's calling to us from the other side. So there's a lot of reasons why we do this. There's a lot of reasons why we have shut down our own intuitive knowing. And in doing so, we shut down our emotions. And we do all of that, number one, to belong. We do it because we don't want to be different to other people. And we also do it because we don't want to make other people uncomfortable. And those are just three off the top of my head amongst many why we actually really just keep it all shut down. We don't want to be too different. We don't want people to be, casting us out of families and friendship groups and whatever because we're too something, too much, too emotional, too this, too that, we tend to become chameleons and shapeshift between the different areas of our lives to match in with the people that we're with. But the problem is when we do that, we're also losing a part of our essence. We're losing a part of our sovereignty and our identity. And people see it and they don't like it, but they also don't want you to be different. So what do you do? Like it's such a tricky kind of place that we're navigating. And ultimately, it really is around recognizing some of the reasons why we shut down our intuitive knowing, why we shut down our emotion, and how we can come back into a place where we see emotion as not only important, but absolutely essential to our soul's evolution. It's essential, okay? So we need to remember that overwhelm can often become a survival strategy, right? So you feel so much for so long that you eventually shut it all down. It becomes too hard. You can't process this with anyone. There's no safety around it. There's no ability for you to kind of move through and feel okay. So it's just better to feel nothing. And I had a period of time where I felt like this. I shut my tears down after I got berated by a boss for crying. And I literally didn't cry for almost 10 years. And then what happens instead is when you shut the tears down, then anger comes through. So I was actually an incredibly angry person, thinking that I was just, being, in my I am presence, trying to assert my boundaries or whatever it is I thought I was doing. That was in my 20s. And I just remember in hindsight going, wow, that was just a complete shutdown of my processing, my emotional processing. So it actually took a lot of time to learn how to feel okay and feel safe around emotionally processing again. And it is quite incredible when you think about how much time you might have spent not allowing your emotions to come through. That's how long you've been stuck. And if you really get super honest with yourself, you'll see that there's going to be patterns in your life where you haven't been able to move forward because you've shut everything down. And if that's the case, my heart goes out to you, because I've been there. I've seen it. I have family members who are like this. And it's such an unconscious, it's a norm. It's a norm. It's a collective consciousness that we shut it all down. And we all think that's okay and normal because we don't want to make people uncomfortable. But honestly, we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot. It just makes it really, really difficult. So another reason is that if you've learned early that your feelings can create chaos, as well as making other people uncomfortable, you're going to shut it down. So you might become the good one, the calm one, the strong one, the person who holds space for others, the one who can actually, be that kind of rescuer. And you don't have any space for you to break down yourself. And that is just devastating, honestly. I've done this as well, ticks for me as well. So if you're resonating with this, please know that you are not alone here. There's a lot of, especially in that baby boomer generation, this concept of being praised for emotional suppression. Oh, wow, she was so brave. She didn't cry at all. Oh, wow, she just moved through that. And she was just, she was managed to go through whatever challenge and didn't fall apart. Go her. It's well, hang on. Coping and being resilient and getting on with it, they're not tick boxes. Those are warning signs. Those are red flags. Those are, wow, that poor person must have internalized all of that trauma or all of that change without feeling their feelings. That is a red flag. That is not something to be praised. And unfortunately, for most of society, we still think that's a good thing. Sometimes what happens too is that you can confuse numbness with neutrality, where you've actually shut it all down. So you think you're being neutral, but actually you're not allowing your emotions at all. It's just become one big kind of numb thing. We think dissociation is enlightenment. When we jump out of our bodies and we go floating around, and I'm not saying that's not fun, that's super fun. And you can do it in, breath work and in meditations and all sorts of kind of processes where you come into your body. And I'm not against any of those things. I do meditation for a living. This is a huge part of the mastery school. But when you do it from a dissociated place, you think that's enlightenment, but we're usually kind of missing the key, which is the embodiment of it, the embodiment of change. When we allow ourselves to process it through our bodies. And I'm not saying we should become, emotional wrecks that live on the couch forever. But one of the rules of thumb with emotions is that if a pure emotion lasts for longer than 15 to 20 minutes, it's a story you're making up. That's something I learned about 25 years ago, and it still is true today. If I want to purely process an emotion or an experience, I will just let it flow for as long as it needs to go, and then it will stop. And it's almost never more than 20 minutes because I'm allowing the energy of it to flow. I'm not crying and recycling my thoughts. I'm inviting the energy in so I can feel it and let it go. It's a 20-minute max experience. If there's multiple emotions, you might then cycle through different emotions. But if you're finding yourself crying for hours and hours and hours and you don't feel better at the end, there could be other things going on. So I'm not saying that everybody has to process all of their emotions in 20 minutes. If it takes you a really long time, that's okay too. And I invite you, if that's happening to you, ask yourself, ask your guidance, am I actually processing, or am I just going on the merry-go-round? Am I moving through this, or am I drowning in it? And the difference can just be the intention. So if you find yourself crying, ask for help. Just ask your guides, just call them in and say, hey, my spiritual team of the light, can you please help me move this emotion through my body? Can I process this and let it go? Can I please, have this visual of it coming through my head and through my body and out my feet, and I'm going to invite this emotion in so that all of it gets felt and all of it gets dealt with, and then I can let it go. Create that intention, ask for that, and then allow the emotion to come through. Another thing is that you may not trust your feelings because you were never taught how to hold them. And that's a really, really massive thing. Even now for me, there's very few people in my world that can hold emotional space. And what I mean by that is, who can hold a loving, compassionate container for you if you are really emotional? Is there anyone in your life that you can sit down with and just feel your feelings? All right. That is one of the most powerful and underrated and unseen skills that we can have as humans. And I'm not saying you're going to dump it on someone and they're going to take on your burdens. No. I'm just talking about holding space, like sitting there and being compassionate and being loving and being non-judgmental and just holding space for someone who needs to process. I have people like that for me. If you don't have people like that for you, I encourage you to ask your guides to give them to you in the form of whomever, friends, partners, colleagues, even counselors, therapists. It doesn't matter who it is, but find someone or a few people that can actually hold that energetic space for you so that you are not unsafe when these feelings come through. And remember, if you don't know how to hold them for yourself, having someone who can hold that compassionate space can actually be that key to allowing you to process. So I've had people at times when, and I'll never forget this. I'll actually never forget this. With my first marriage, when things were falling apart, I had a very close friend of mine from university, and he came to stay with me. He'd been living overseas. And I might even get emotional when I say it now, but he asked me how I was. And I did the normal, I'm fine, I'm getting by. And he just looked me in the eyes and he said, no, I really want to know how you are. And I couldn't help it. Like the tears flowed and I was telling him everything and explaining what was going on. And, having someone hold that really safe space can be the catalyst and the permission for you to allow yourself to move through whatever it is that you're holding back on. So the truth that most of us avoid is that the next version of yourself, the version with clearer intuition, with a steadier nervous system, with better boundaries, the one who attracts deeper relationships and soul-aligned opportunities, that version of yourself is hiding inside the emotion that you've been avoiding. And I can't even begin to tell you how profound this is, and this experience that I've had in the last few years where I've actually allowed emotion to come through and really allowed myself to experience what I need to experience so I can come out the other side. It's really, really important. And I'm not saying that you're doing something wrong. I'm just saying that emotion is the doorway to that. And if you want to move through it, remember that the feeling is the upgrade. That is the upgrade, right? And the embodied presence in that emotion is the initiation. So giving yourself space, giving yourself grace, giving yourself time, giving yourself compassion around what you're feeling, and let yourself be seen by you. That deeper wounded part, the inner child part, the past life part, the part that's holding on to womb imprints, ancestral patterning, whatever it is, hold space for that. Have compassion for that and allow that part of you to release whatever you've been holding on to, because that is the key. And that will take you into the next version of yourself that doesn't carry it anymore. I can't even tell you how powerful and profound this is. It's so good. So here's what actually happens in your field. Okay. So when you feel fully, honestly, without collapsing, without deflecting, without wiping the tears away, and I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have done that. without any of that, what happens is that your emotional body, your energetic body, and your intuitive body, they all click back into alignment. And everything starts to allow a flow of energy through your life, okay? So space will open, your channel opens better, your life shifts in a different way. Everything clears up. Your intuition becomes clearer. Things become easier. The healer that I am now is 100 times the healer I was only 2 years ago. And that's because of all of these initiations through emotion and healing, okay? The you that you can see clearly, the one who isn't confused, overwhelmed, or doubting, that person lands. There's no drama anymore. Something happens and there doesn't have to be chaos. You can just have a gentle landing into whatever needs to happen next. Okay. So the moment when all of those click into place and you've got this alignment and you've got this flow through your body, that's the moment that the next evolution enters your body. It's such a powerful thing. Remembering that when you have that coherence, when you have that emotional coherence in your body, and your heart and your mind are in alignment, and your energetic body kind of clicks into place with it because you're allowing and you're moving that energy through your body, that's when you can actually accelerate your spiritual experience on the planet. And that's a really beautiful thing. Okay. And it's why you can't spiritually bypass your way to the next level. You have to feel your way into it. You have to do the work. You have to meet yourself. You have to see every version of yourself that's wounded and send compassion and love to that version of you so that you can actually move through this experience into something that is more healed and more whole and more aligned. So I think there needs to be a few steps on how to do this. So how to begin to feel again. It's really important to start with sensation and not story. One of the things that we bypass often is this just being aware of the emotion. Like just feel into your body. Where do you feel tension? Or when you think about something that's been creating stress and pain in your life, where do you feel that in your body? What emotion is that? Meet that emotion. Allow yourself to feel it, right? What am I feeling becomes, what is the sensation in my body right now? And then allow yourself to feel it. You can have a name for it. You can have anger. You can have sadness. You can have whatever. But whatever you're feeling, even if it's, I feel mumble jumble purple flowers. Okay, send compassion to mumble jumble purple flowers. No one cares, right? It doesn't have to have a beautiful name. It just has to be a sensation that you can recognize and name and send compassion to it, right? That's so important. And let it be simple. It doesn't have to have a massive story attached to it. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be analyzed. It doesn't have to be spiritualized. It doesn't have to be, compartmentalized or intellectualized. It doesn't need any of the ISs. It just needs to be felt, right? It just needs to be seen. And the second we recognize that is the second we actually start to shift into a different place. Stay with the feeling as well for about 10 seconds longer than you normally would. So one of the things that I noticed with me, or I used to, I'm getting so much better, but one of the things that I used to notice if I'm shutting it off quicker is being really mindful that, oh, do I have any more of that left? Is there more to feel? And I'll go back into the feeling and I'll go back into the sensation and I'll see if any more comes. And sometimes it did and sometimes it didn't. But that was such a really nice way of, okay, I'm just going to stay with this for a bit longer than I think I need and then see what happens. And very often there's a little bit left over. So just allow it to keep coming through, okay? Make your inner world the safest place you know, all right? No pushing, no rushing, just holding, sending compassion, sending love, forgiveness, oneness to those parts of you that are hurting. And don't judge it. It is not important why you feel sad right now, but just that you feel sad. Send compassion to that part of you. That's okay. That's enough. So we've got to remember that feelings, ultimately at the end of the day, when we give ourselves permission to move through all of that, it's a superpower. It's not a flaw. Our ability to recognize, see, feel, and heal is 100% reliant on this process. Okay. I can't even tell you how incredibly important it is. And the more we shut it down, just check in with yourself. Okay, I was really shut down for the last few months. Has my life moved forward? Oh, no, not really. Oh, wow, I've been the most emotional I've ever been in a functional way, not in a destructive way. So the discernment's really important. I've been really functionally emotional, as in I'm processing things. I'm creating the intention to heal stuff. And when I have emotions come through about something, I'm going to feel it, move it through my body and let it go. So that's the functional way of processing emotion. If you are someone who's really, really deeply struggling with emotion and you cannot turn it off, I do strongly recommend you go and get some help. If you are finding this just way too much and overwhelming and I can't cope and this is not something I can do on my own, go and get support. Like, don't do this on your own. You don't have to do this on your own. Okay. But do remember that if you aren't in that place and you do feel like you're ready to maybe try and turn your feelings back on, so this is more for the people that have turned it off, just remember that this is your compass. It's your superpower. It's not a flaw. This is something that will actually really leapfrog you into the next version, which is exactly what you want. It's your access point into intuition and clarity and alignment. It's just so incredibly important. And you have to remember that when you allow yourself to feel it, you're not falling apart, you're coming back online. And you may not feel that in the moment, but you might feel it an hour later or the next day or 2 days later or a week later or however long later, but it will click stuff into place in your life. You're changing your timeline, you're changing your soul's evolution through the sensation of the emotions that you're experiencing. Just remember too that the next version of you is closer than you think, and often it's just going to be a process of becoming real with yourself, understanding where you're at, feeling the sensations and the emotions in your body, sending them compassion and love, and just allowing that to kind of move through the evolution of what it needs to do within the body. And every time I've done this in my one-on-one sessions, they always come back to a place of peace. I've never, ever taken someone through a journey where they end up in more chaos than when they started. They are always feeling much more peaceful in themselves. And that is super important. And that's the key. So remembering that we need to, as humans, if we want to evolve, if we want to move forward, if we want to self-actualize, we have to get really honest with ourselves. We have to stop any bypassing. We're not silver lining this crap anymore. We're not high vibing ourselves through shit. We're not actually saying everything's okay when everything's terrible. Let's send compassion to ourselves. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. This is so terrible right now. Let's just send love and compassion and really beautiful energy to the part of you that's hurting. Let's send light in there. Let's hold that space for it. Let's let it transmute into love, into light, into change. And give yourself that space and that grace to move through it. Okay. So, the art of healing is really into the version of your soul that it already sees and is trying to call to you. And you just have to allow yourself to move through the portal of emotion to get there. If you want to know more, if you want to dive in more, I do one-on-one sessions, which is on my website. And I also have this beautiful Intuitive Mastery School, which is 100% just such a beautiful container for you to process all of this and do it with loving, supportive people who know how you feel and want to hold space for you as well. All right. I hope this was really good for you. I hope it was helpful. Sending so much love to you, and I will see you next time.